Hi, good evening and welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. We also coming to you live on YouTube. You can get it in the Guyanese Critic page. Back in the 80s and the 90s, Gildarie is a little boy growing up in the Grove area, Grove housing scheme. Every Christmas I look forward to a couple of things. It was a pepper pot, very poor then, in the place, 3rd Street Grove. It was garlic pork, bread, Christmas morning, Stretch Out magazine. I think it happened with midday. You would not miss a year without it. As we go forward, and we went forward rather, years ahead, I think it would be, I'm in a sad place right now, knowing that some of the days which we enjoyed so much, I wish we could go back to those days. The older folks would remember some of the things that happened around Christmas. I was telling Freddie not too long ago, it's 5 weeks before Christmas now, and I can't remember when last I heard the song All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth. Those things were classics, and it was a traditional thing every Christmas. Today we have a man in the studio who's the sight of him has brought back those memories, and I can't even, some people describe me as a broadcaster sometimes. I can't even put myself in his shoes. I'm not even a broadcaster. I just happened into this field by accident, into the radio for a little while, no formal training. But this guy here, when you're talking broadcasting in Guyana, he is somebody that should have a mark or a star on the crosswalks, or what you would say similar in America. You would have a star on that walkway there. He should have that. He should also have a street name after him. And Freddie Kissoon, my co-host, good night to you, sir, is going to do the honors of introducing him. There was one time, I'm going to tell you how I remember this gentleman sitting here, and it's stuck in my brains, and every time I think about his name, I remember that. But we're going to talk a little bit that. Over to my co-host, Freddie Kissoon, who's going to do the honors tonight and talk about this man as we bring the spotlight right down on the arts, on the theater in Guyana. What are we doing for people in Guyana, those people, those artists? Freddie?
Good evening, wherever you are. We have one of the most interesting personalities that Guyana has produced the past 70 years. Now, my questions to our guest is going to be unusual, and I am going to introduce him in an unusual way. 5 years ago, we sat down at the bar. He drank beer, I drank soft drink, and I interviewed him for the Kaicho News. Here is the interview. Now, if you look at my right hand, there is this man in the 70s, one of the handsomest guys Guyana produced. That was him in the 70s. Now look at him and I at the bar, and he hasn't aged. My black hair turned to gray. I am going to introduce our guest by reading from the first question in my interview 5 years ago. Here we go. Freddie Kissoon, how many years have you chalked up in broadcasting and theatre? Ron Robinson, 61 years in theatre and 52 years in broadcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, you're looking at a phenomenon. 61 years in theatre and 52 years in broadcasting. And this interview was done 5 years ago. So add on 5 years. Wherever you are, we'd like to introduce you to one of the cultural icons of Guyana. Let me show you again what the interview said. Freddie Kissoon chats with a cultural icon at the Demerara Cricket Club. And when we was running the advertisement, the operator asked me, how should I describe Ron Robinson? And I said, put his name / national cultural icon. Mr. Icon, welcome again to an interview with you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here. And indeed, that was 5 years ago. And the picture at the bottom, I noticed you didn't point that one out.
The picture at the bottom is when
But,
you were
that
what we
was
call in Ghana sweet boy.
Yeah, sweet boy. That's when I used to look good. Oh, yes.
You still look good. Age is a state of mind.
True.
I'm going to read one of the questions I asked you in this interview. I'm going to start with that question first,
Okay.
because you're a theatre man. I forgot to tell our viewers, I think you're one of the finest actors this region produced, and perhaps the third world. You're just a natural. I saw you when I was in my 30s at the Theatre Guild. You have acted in some of the greatest plays put on in the Caribbean. Long Day's Journey into Night,
Right.
The Only Game in Town. I think you were a real Tennessee Williams character. But let us start on a light note, and then we'll get on to the ponderous questions. Now, as I said before, my thing will be unusual. I will question you on my questions 5 years ago. That's because in a newspaper article, the answers have to be brief. These words here are 785, whereas in the TV station, you can go on and on. So here is my first question to Ron Robinson, our national cultural icon. This is funny now. I can't help laughing, but I will still ask. I heard in your superb days, you were a ladies' man, Ron Robinson. Can't say I refuse all the offers that came my way. Before Gildarie comes in, you want to answer that question again?
Well, it's the same thing. I couldn't refuse certain offers. But you see, I was then a young, brash fellow, and I had not settled into the lifestyle that I have been living for the past few decades. Because as you get older, you get a little more senior, you get a little more
Slow.
targeting, and you focus better. And so, that was the good old days, or the old days, let me put, which were good.
Gildarie, look at this handsome fella here. A man like that has to be a gigolo.
Freddie, I'm not so sure why you're so mesmerized by Ron's good looks, but
No, I'm promulgating it to the viewers. If 70% of the Guyanese population is under 45, then they wouldn't know this man when he was sweeping Guyana. But he will sweep Guyana once again in 2022, not to mention Leonard. This man acted in a movie in 2018. Is this guy ever going to stop and take his dog on the seawall like me in old age and just relax and contemplate philosophy? Are you ever going to stop?
Well, the thing is, they say you don't work if you do what you love. I love theatre, I love radio, I love acting, so I don't work. You see, you work, and you work hard. But for me, it's love of culture, of the arts, and I still think there's more we need to do. But I'm sure you'll get to that.
I fully endorse Mr. Robinson. A couple of things here, Freddie. The man happens to be from QC to my school, so I think 2 QC people in the room. I don't know.
One of the best QC has produced.
I remembered you from I think it was Link Show, or was it Link Show or Stretch magazine? You played the perfect role. I don't think anybody could have done it better. It had to be Ron Robinson.
I know who you're talking about.
It was a man by the name of Larry Lewis, the former commissioner of police.
Commissioner of police at the time.
If you know Larry, God bless his soul. Larry used to walk in a very funny way. His posterior pushed out in a different direction, and Ron did this perfect. And I looked at this thing, I think that was one of the biggest. I think for years people were making fun out of Larry, out of that. But I read that article that you wrote also to Freddie, and one of the things that struck me, here was a man. Satire is intended to poke fun at our leaders, our outstanding members of community, maybe not so outstanding as well. And I read something that really caught my attention there. He went to Bornham. He was, I think, you were summoned.
No, I asked
it's
for,
here, it's here.
I asked for an interview with him.
So the people who haven't read that article, they did a show and it poked fun at one of the characters, a man, I think it was Elvin McDavid. And Mr. McDavid was a senior official within the Bornham administration. And Elvin, said no more of this show anymore. And Ron Robinson decided he's going to go see Bornham. And Bornham said, anytime you stop poking fun at us, that is when the show is going to be in trouble. In other words, Bornham, it shows a different aspect of who Bornham was, which is good for this country's history, that he had a tolerance for the arts, and he tolerated to satire, which was something that another side to Bornham that we don't know.
He said that Link Show is necessary, actually.
Right.
It's a necessary part of the Guyanese, life, because it gives release. People go, they laugh, they get release, they make fun of things which before were problems or on their shoulders, and they were heavy with what was going on. We made fun of it, and they saw the lighter side, and they felt better.
Yes.
To our viewers here, this article was written, published on Monday, October 30, 2017. Let me read the question and then Ron's answer, and then Ron will come in here. Something ought to be named after you. I would suggest that Theatre Gale be given the title Ron Robinson Theatre. I hope after the publication of this interview, we can see some movement there. Ron Robinson. Well, I'm not suggesting anything be named after me. It's for others to do so. When Mr. Hamilton Green was mayor, he decided that a part of Hartsfield Street, where I was born, not too far from where I was born, be named after me. I heard nothing further up to this day. Now, if the authorities and the people in the corridors are viewing this, Eugene Karaya Airport was named after the publication of this interview. Ortachang Convention was named after 2017. Shivnarine Chanjapal Drive was named after 2017. When you look at this man's contribution to his country at 5 to 60, that's 65 years in theatre, and the Link Show will be 41 years next month. This will be performed, produced by Ron Robinson, in which he will be performing in it. 52 years in broadcasting, and he's still broadcasting, add 5 years to that. 65 years and 57 years. Isn't it time that something be named after this man? I've said it in 2 columns, and I would like an outpouring of support for a man who globally, how many people globally have achieved 65 years in theatre and 57 years in broadcasting? We have a little history maker here. Ron? Well, I don't expect you to champion your own cause.
No,
and I agree
won't.
with that. I agree with that.
I won't
But there's got to be something named after you. And I told my wife when I was coming here, for the longest while I have known you, Ron, you have never rubbed. Oh God, I have rubbed millions of people the wrong way.
Of course, yes.
You have never rubbed no one the wrong way. Let me tell you what. Let me read a part of this interview that is going to now raise your eyebrows. Ron Robinson, Freddie Kissoon, any other situation involving politics? Ron Robinson, I was offered the job of Minister of Culture in the 70s. When I refused it, President Burnham said he knew I would. Of course, you wouldn't want to go in politics and rub anyone the wrong way. You don't rub people the wrong way.
No. I do believe satire should be not trying to rub people the wrong way, but just highlighting or lampooning people who make themselves subjects for such lampooning. And just about every public figure at some time or other says or does something that gives us a Link Show script or a stretched out magazine script. This year there's so much for Stretch Throat magazine from all sides, all sides. And so what I try to do whenever I do a production is to balance it, to make sure the one side doesn't say, well, you see how you're hitting at me? But at the same time, yes, I hit at everybody who puts themselves in a position to be lampooned, because that is what true, genuine satire is. It's not looking to target anybody, but it's looking to see the foibles and whatnot that people do in their public life. And most public figures, from King Charles to Joe Biden to Irfan Ali to everybody, Aubrey Norton, all at some time say something, and I'm sure if they were honest with themselves, they say, I hope Ron didn't hear that, or I hope Ron didn't see that, because I know he's going to have it in the program. So that's how I look at it, trying to balance everything.
You know the reason why we have decided back-to-back here almost. On Friday last week we had two persons in the arts too here, Mr. Kazim and Mr. Jones, Lyndon Jones. And the reason why we, AKA Zombie, and the other one, Loli. The reason why we're doing this, Mr. Robinson, is because I have received, and Freddie also, he's received numerous complaints, and my eyes were opened when they approached us for the Nothing to Laugh About for sponsorship, approached our company, and then I got a glimpse of the hardships that some of these artists go through. They're not being valued. I want to ask you, because we want to bring the spotlight straight down on it with the hopes that the authorities, the powers that be, could do something to improve the lot of our artists in this country. And I think I read today that the president summoned some of the singers and so on, or he invited
paying
some
them double.
Right, and paying them double. And that's a good start, but those are for the singers. Let's look at our actors now. I want to ask you directly, sir, what is wrong with our theatre in Guyana right now?
Well, what is needed in our theatre, which is same as what's wrong with it, is that not enough attention is paid by the authorities to theatre. It is still considered something that is not necessarily warranting of funding to that extent. And but culture, sport, all these make up a nation. A nation without culture is not a nation at all. It will fall flat. There must be culture. Even if you look at the culture we have, the Mari Mari dance of the indigenous people, that's part of our culture. The way they cook, the way they make cassava bread, the way they make kazreep for a pepper pot, especially at Christmas. That's all part of our culture. The way we speak, all part of our culture. And this is why I think that what the authorities need to do, whichever side is in, is to pay more attention and pay more financially to the development of the arts, the promoting arts, the performing arts, the visual arts, like dance. That's very important. And they have to set aside in the budget specific sums and tangible sums that will mean something. Artists in Guyana, actors, ask any actor, can you make a living from acting? No, they can't. They have to use a small piece to buy a little extra, or give their family a little bit more, their children and so on, because they cannot make a living as yet. Many, many years of independence, and we still cannot say that we have. Take, for example, if you compare us with Jamaica, they have the Rex Nettleford School of Dance, and their dancers have performed all over the world, and compliments of the government of Jamaica. Look at sport, which is also very important. They have stadiums filled when school children have their sporting events. That is why they're encouraged from that age and become Olympic gold medalists, because they're encouraged by the government, who puts a lot of money into sport, into culture, into the arts, and it shows. And I think that what will happen to Guyana is, if that money is expended specifically for the arts, for culture, for theatre, which is one of my, the bees in my bonnet. If more is expended in these areas, I think we will have a massive, massive cultural revolution in this country that will be global.
I want to tell viewers about Ronnie Robinson that I never saw or spoke to. I didn't go to high school. I left primary school, St. Thomas More RC School in Dublin Street. And that time we were very poor. My father had a little radio. And every morning, the people of this country, I was very small then, and the people in this country heard Ronnie Robinson. He woke every one of us up with the morning program. And whenever I push a Fausto Papetti CD in my car, I remember we wake up in the morning, my father's preparing to go to work. Ronnie Robinson is playing Fausto Papetti. This man introduced this nation to fantastic music. Now here is something he would not know. And I'm hoping I don't put my foot in my mouth. You know, he used to play often in the morning program. He liked the Shadows.
Yes.
And one of his favorite songs in the Shadows that I knew he played often is Kontiki.
Kontiki.
You remember Kontiki?
Oh yes, very much so. Oh, yeah.
So in the morning, the country's going to work, and there was Ronnie Robinson. I learned a song from him that I came to really like because it's such a lovely 60s song. That time was the hippie generation, by a group called Classic 4.
Oh yes,
okay,
featuring Dennis Hughes.
Yes.
Yep.
Faded for Traces of
Traces.
Love. And when I heard this song and Ron Robinson talking about it, really, Ron, really, you have done tremendous for this country. I'm elated to be interviewing you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
I remember from the 80s, Freddie, as you talked there, I was living in Enmore, staying with my grandmother while my parents were in Turkine. And one of the things that I remembered, there are a couple of things that stuck in my head. That announcement, that tune. Yeah. Whenever you hear that, it's 9 o'clock in the night. It comes on directly 9 o'clock in the night. And you're very scared because the whole place went silent and everybody blamed the radio listening to who did. There was another song that really stuck in my head, Ricks and Sari. Could you sing the song for me?
Oh, spice up your kitchen with Ricks and Sari for unforgettable flavor, tantalizing taste. People who know quality choose Ricks and Sari. And then I would say a few things, and then Dave Martins would come back. Spice up your kitchen with Ricks and Sari.
Dave Martin played a role in that.
Oh yeah, he wrote it.
He wrote it.
And
what role did you play in that thing?
I did the voice.
You did
in the middle, because he did it as what we call a donut. You'd have a bit of instrumental and vocal, then just instrumental, and then vocal at the end. So that middle was a hole in the donut.
The older folks, ladies and gentlemen, will remember that. But what is important, having Ron Robinson in our studio here tonight, is that I realize I'm far not in his shoes, because if you look at his diction and the way he pronounces his words, I said theater, he said theater. I was paying attention to what he's saying, and that is class by itself. It takes years and years, so I can't even begin to think. So we have somebody here who has played a tremendous, fantastic role growing up. A lot of people where there was no TV back then, and Freddie Kissoon was talking about this transistor radio. We had radiogram by my grandmother.
Oh, yes.
So when you put it on, I think the folks would know about that. There was no CDs, there was no Bluetooth. It was just whatever it is. I think you had the aerial in the back of your gram, or you had a transistor. My grandfather had one of the small little red one, and he had the rubber bands around it, and so you're listening, and it was every Sunday morning the radio and the newspaper. It was a Mirror newspaper, the Chronicle newspaper, and everybody was reading, telling hymns back in those days. But we did talk a little earlier about what is being plunged into, or what is needed for theatre in Guyana. I want to ask you if you ever had a look at what the consecutive governments would have put into the arts in Guyana? Do you have an idea what those figures are?
Well, not really, no. But I know that in the days of the PNC, Forbes Burnham was very much, supportive of the arts. He believed in the arts. He would come to link shows even and laugh. And you were quite right when he said, the link show, you don't put me in it, then I'm going to close it down because you're saying I haven't done anything in a year. And he was serious. I laughed and he said, I'm serious. You make sure you write all the Burnham scripts, put them one side, then you can write whatever you want after that.
Yeah, the ego problem, or just that those is way of
Other
saying.
presidents have also been quite supportive. We have never, ever been censored by any president of this country. None, not one of them. You name the president, no president has said this has to come out or this has to be changed and so on. Never. We've never had censorship.
And these things are being aired on state, I think NCN and so on, right?
Yes.
Right.
The only censorship that was attempted, and I bow to it, though I felt the person only highlighted the skit more, was a former minister of the government who called me and said, I am not a groveling minister, so take it out. And I said, but people have seen it already. There have been a couple of performances. The moment you take it out, somebody says, did you see the skit with so-and-so? And they say, no, that's out. You're going to highlight it even more. And the same thing, at the time it was President Burnham, told him, he said, you were stupid. You should have left it alone. It would have died down a natural death. Like every other link skit. It's, part of this.
Because of the interesting point you made there, Mr. Robinson, I looked at, I think, 2 days back. A guy named Trevor Noah, I think it is.
Oh, Trevor Noah.
He interviewed Barack Obama. I think this happened very recently. And Barack Obama was quite gracious talking to him. And you could say, he told the guy, I think Noah told him, I don't know what to call you, whether it's a president or
he
said, call me the president.
President.
Call me the president. But I think the point I wanted to make there, if you look at leaders around the world, satire, comedy, and I think coming up to your show next month, I could call 3 people that I think would be featured, and I know you won't want to give away any. Critic with the hairstyle, maybe Freddie Kissoon with the hairstyle too. Then you would have our dancing president.
But as we on that, what you did for the previous thing, you have to do for one. He has these large electronic billboards up the East Bank, and he was gracious enough to give the previous production last week to flash it on his screen. He has to do that for the link show.
You working with Ron now?
I am saying, I normally talk to you lightly about your steel jokes. This is no joke. You have to Ron.
Well, I'm going to make him commit now.
Please, will you commit now?
Will you
free advert in your big screens?
Last
I will give you his
last week he made me put my hands in my wallet and give him money.
If there's anybody that you're going to give advertisement to, it's this national icon. But let me tell viewers about something he said here that shows you the philosophical difference in people. If we don't have poets and painters and singers and actors, you know what this civilized world would be like. Here is a question of mine to Ron Robinson, and listen to the answer. And I'm asking viewers who think making money makes the world go round. Listen to this answer. The question first. After 6 decades in theatre and broadcasting, are you a wealthy person? No, not at all. I had chance in 1969 to make money when I was offered a great job with the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. I became the first black employee of that bank. I returned to Guyana to pursue what I love.
Let me answer the question that you're asking, and I read that too. The reason why we hold on shows of this nature, this is not a political show, it is to bring highlight, to raise a level of conversation.
I commend you guys for that.
But we don't, I could be at home. I have a full-time job. In fact, when I'm finished here, I have to go work again, and I've been working the entire day. The reason why we do this, Freddie and I come out three days a week, is because it is a sacrifice. We may not been paid for this one. And I really, if you say put in your money where your mouth is, we have committed, our company, Pixels Guyanese, has committed, and I had no idea that artists were going through the level of hardship it is.
Yeah.
And I really admire them, regardless what happened. They still go through it, and I saw Kazim and I saw Lyndon, and they're talking about the sacrifices that they made, and they're
Yes,
not so
they
much. Imagine you doing a whole show production, you only getting paid $50,000-$100,000. And to answer Freddie Kissoon's request right away, our company has not shied away from it. We have done a lot of work in the background very quietly. We're not a rich company by any ways, but we have committed in a big way, whatever we can, to the arts in Guyana, to the development of the arts. In fact, I would like to challenge our president of Guyana, and I know that he's a man who listens, to really look out for artists in Guyana, or actors. When you look at Ron's contribution and so many others who not in the limelight, when I say not in the limelight, they're not going to be very vocal.
Yeah, advertisement, please.
Right. But we're gonna make sure that we commit to that run as part of our company's how you say it, corporate
I want to commend you on something you're doing, and that is on the radio, people going home or what, and thanks to Pixels, they can hear whether the traffic on the bridge or traffic is slow, whether it's smooth, whether it's flowing, which is very good. And I know many people depend on that now. You can't stop it.
That happened by accident. Our traffic cams on the East Bank, and I think it's on Sheriff Street and Mandela. And
That's
so on.
right.
We're moving right now to expand, but we're not getting a cent out of it. But our company has decided to do that. To expand it, keep it there. We get about 300,000 hits per month. We've kept it very quietly there, but the people, even the ministers are here, are looking into it. But it is, as companies, as you develop, why should you want to develop as a company and not allow that wealth to be shared? I was brought up in a different way. When I came out of the media and I decided to go into business, my family and I vowed that we are going to try to help. I have a foundation for 15 years now. Very quietly, we've not said anything to anybody. Been doing it. The whole point.
I wouldn't mind receiving some.
I'm going to bring some clothes for you.
No, it wouldn't fit me.
It wouldn't?
No. You can bring a discman for me. Remember, this program said I use this.
You want everything happen yesterday?
Well, you have a foundation. I'm requesting a few this month. But back to some of the interesting aspects of this national icon. My question, which play did you like the best that you acted in? Ron Robinson, Old Time Story, followed by Driving Miss Daisy. Driving Miss Daisy was a successful film starring Morgan Freeman.
That's right. I did the role that Morgan played. And Maggie was Miss Daisy. Maggie Lawrence. She was Miss Daisy. So I had with me an icon of theatre in Guyana, Maggie, who I consider one of the finest ever in the Caribbean as an actress.
Where is she now?
She is still here, and she is the executive director of Morundo, which is the longest running radio drama in
Could you
Caribbean.
tell her we'll just stick to culture, the arts and theatre. Could you talk to her about appearing here?
Sure.
She and I watch UG together.
I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
You acted in a movie about 2 years, Mahadir Shivraj. I think what was the name of it, Freddie?
Dangerous Game.
A Dangerous Game?
I know you can get the trailer on YouTube. It has the word game inside.
Yeah. But you played
Protection Game.
Protection Game.
Please go on YouTube, punch in Protection Game, and you will see Ron Robinson in 2018. So that would make him 63 years
You fixated on figures, right? Age.
in acting.
But I was 72 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But I understand that you played a prosecutor. I got to look at that.
I was the defense counsel.
You were the defense counsel.
And I won the case.
And you won the case.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see that. Freddie, we do happen to have some very fine people in the theatre in Guyana. You talk about Maggie. I don't know much about her. I presume if I see her, I never like rub shoulders with her. It's been a couple of years now. I think she's been kept very quiet, but it would be an honor to have her here and let us chat.
Oh yes, I'm sure she will be.
But we have got to give Freddie and Ron. We gotta use our platforms, and I'm gonna ask Critic maybe to jump on to put some pressure. I think this is one area that we gotta put some money into. Let us try to do that, because it cannot be that you see countries, you go to Brazil, you see the big cultural centers that they have, Suriname, Trinidad big on culture over there. Everything carnival and everything, it's so very big. Why not us? And we have some really unique things here that we could do. You talk about the Amerindian culture there. That's something that we could make a whole bunch of money on, the making of cassava. Imagine that.
When I met Ron decades ago, one of the things I was impressed about, Gildarie, it always leaves an impression when you meet a big name. And that big name acts as an ordinary person. And that is one of the things I liked about this man. I grew up hearing this name and knowing this name. Now listen to this question. One of the things I liked about you when I first met you is your lack of class elitism, Ron Robinson. I got that from my mom. She drove the concept of equality into me. That was the first political statement you probably made in your life.
Is there any character that you would have played that is part of your psyche, or that you could just at the drop of a hat? And I'm going to ask you to do that now. Pulling you out, I want a character. You could probably name it and let us talk to the people out there.
Well, I think one of the characters is referring to a play that Freddie mentioned, and that is Old Story Time, when I did Pa Ben, the storyteller.
I remember Pa Ben.
And I think that was probably the closest to my character, in that I love children. I love telling stories to children, and haven't done it for a while, but I really should. But the thing is, that also reminds me of the upbringing I had. My parents were quite strict, but at the same time, they allowed you some laxity, some freedom of especially expression. We could sit with our father and discuss anything. He would listen, he would offer his side of it, and so on. And I remember he was so very much a tutor, a teacher, that when I first went on air, the very first morning I went on air, I said, Dad, I would like you to listen to the program and give me a critique. I also asked Hugh Chumley to do that. And when I got home, I said, so Dad, how was the program? He said, you said 60-something arms. You said 60-something times. I made a note of each one. So tomorrow I expect to hear less, and the next day even less. And I was so conscious of saying that it eventually came out of my vocabulary, and it helps the flow. You mentioned, the way I speak. That's thanks to my dad. And I must give credit for my foundation in radio to people like Hugh Chumley and Vic Cincinnati and Pat Cameron. Those three persons, icons, and Ray Robinson.
That's your cousin?
My cousin. He died a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago? I know he lived near to where I was born.
Okay.
He lived in Hatfield Street.
Hatfield Street, opposite where
the
GTT is.
Yeah, where GTT is.
Yeah. But Vic, I still consider one of the finest ever voices and broadcasters. Hugh Chumley was exceptional. Pat Cameron was also a great broadcaster. And I had the privilege of joining radio with mentors like that, who they didn't come down to your level. You had to go up to theirs. And that is the best teacher there is. The best system for anybody in any business is move up to the person who is good. Move up to that excellent, entrepreneur, businessman, broadcaster, actor, whatever. Go up to their level. Don't expect them to come down to yours. If they do, they're not professional.
Tell us about your life. We're not hearing about your life. We need to. This program need to hear Your life is too interesting. Tell us about your journeys performing outside. Apart from the two plays, Old Time Story and Driving Lazy, what other plays you like, what you think of Tennessee Williams? Tell us about your life.
Well, there's so many productions I did that, I would spend more than an hour telling you about them. But indeed, Witness for the Prosecution was another production that I really enjoyed.
Could you give us a counsel's or the defense lawyer's delivery? Maybe a couple of things.
Well, one of the
With
things
authority?
that the audience always reacted and said the last line, I am doing cross-examination of a witness.
Cross-examine Freddie.
Who was in fact Maggie Lawrence, and I was accusing her of lying. So I said, if you were lying then, aren't you lying? And the audience finished it. Now, the whole audience, every night. I also have to say a big thank you to people like Frank Pilgrim, because Frank was so much a part of my Link show beginning, because I was in Brink shows at the Theatre Guild, and those old enough would remember the Brink show, which was done by the Theatre Guild. And Frank Pilgrim was the producer, and he wrote a lot of the satire. Working with Frank, I learnt about satire. He is, in fact, the godfather of the Link show, God rest the dead, because Frank was very good, and he had a great sense of humor. And he taught me a lot about respect as opposed to, satire, disrespect, and that sort of thing. Don't disrespect the person you're satirizing. Lampoon them, yes, but don't show. And there were skits that were written by script writers for Link shows that I dismissed, I discarded, because they went over the line and they were disrespectful. That's not satire. So when I do Stretch Out Magazine or No Big Thing or Link Show, it is a matter of lampooning, satirizing, not disrespecting.
We have to do it.
And I always maintain, when you're going to write scripts, you have to write with an open mind. You can't be on one side or the other, otherwise it's going to be biased. So what you need to do is to look at both. If you get a skit about X, you must do one about Y. And people say, why? I said, well, if X has done more, well, maybe they'll get more. But when people look at it, they will say, they asked for that. Because everything he did in the Link or on Stretch Out Magazine was part of things that they saw. I remember, for example, when, and this is where, the gentleman you mentioned who tried to shut down the Link, and it was President Burnham had just come back from Australia, and the Prime Minister Fraser, I think it was, and there am I on the stage describing his deplaning at the airport. And I said, here comes President Burnham, and I see he's brought some gifts from Prime Minister Fraser of Australia, including a koala bear. And then Richard Narayan runs out, whispers in my ear, and I say, oh, I beg your pardon, that's not a koala bear. That is a political advisor to the president.
Oh my goodness.
And after that, President Burnham called him KB. He got that nickname, and he couldn't get rid of it. And Burnham said, look, you see, and I heard this from somebody who was in the office.
He hated you for years, or he just spoke to you after that?
No.
I want to ask.
Look at here.
Yes.
Elvin McDavid took umbrage to being referred to koala bear in the show during Burnham's visit to Australia. What about your travels abroad? I know you took your shows abroad.
Yes, we did, and they were very successful.
Which country you got that kind of Guyanese feeling as if you were in Guyana?
New York. New York.
Crowds? They had a big crowd?
Yes, we used to have very big crowds. New York and Toronto. We were very successful. But that's not the only show that I took abroad. Dave Martins wrote a musical, and we did it and took that on tour. That was a 2-month tour, and that was very successful as well. And if Dave is listening, yes, thanks to him. And there's another icon that you should have on your program if you haven't had yet.
Yeah.
Dave Martins. He is just simply genius.
I think so too.
He is an icon.
In the Caribbean, which country when you perform is a if you were in Guyana?
I think perhaps Antigua.
Okay.
You might think I would say Trinidad, but Antigua, because there's so many Guyanese in Antigua. I even did Smile Orange. I produced it in Antigua, directed it for them.
That was that's Trevorrone's.
Trevorone, yeah, Smile
But
Orange.
you never put it on here?
Yes.
You did? That's a
Yes, I did it.
hilarious
Yes, I did it
That's a
twice.
hilarious movie. You
Yeah.
have to see that movie, Gildarie.
With the
That's one of the
boy.
best
I
best
think that's
Jamaican
right, but
produced.
that was the early 80s, right? I think it was
Yes,
the early
he wrote
80s.
it a long time ago, because Trevorone has been dead for a number of years now. But Smile Orange, we did that. And I remember the
In Antigua and good reception.
Yes, we got good reception. It was done with Antigans. I directed Antigans. And when the gentleman who was playing, a fellow named Guy, he was supposed to do the lead role, but his wife had to go for medical treatment urgently to the States. So he had to bow out about 3 days before opening night. And I took on the lead role.
Let me ask you, there is another side with you about here, and this is on the more serious side, long term. There's some people who are arguing that traditional mediums like newspaper, radio, as it was, they're dying. You see social media now, and social media personalities are getting phenomenal reaches now.
Yes.
Companies, corporate Guyana, corporate companies across the world are looking to what they call influencers to get the message across, to sell the products and services. Do you believe that the radio is dead in Guyana, that broadcasters are facing the toughest challenges ever?
We're facing challenges, yes, but I don't think radio will ever die. Can you be on social media when you're driving all the way to Caribbean? No, you're not supposed to be on your phone, but you can be listening to the radio. And I think the radio is still a very, very important part of daily life. Many people still depend on the radio. They listen in the morning or evening. They're going home and they're listening to a program where they're enjoying some music and chatting with whoever is in their vehicle. But they can still be a part of radio, and radio could be a part of their life and will always be. I don't think there's any medium that will replace radio in Guyana.
Henry Mutu, Ken Crosby, Mark Matthews. I would put you, I know they're talented people. I saw them perform.
Very
but I
talented.
still think you my number one. There's no question about that. They all left. Were you ever tempted to leave?
Well, I left in '69, but after a few months in Toronto, I decided, Guyana is mine. Guyana is home. Guyana is me. So I came back, as I told you in that interview.
Yeah, right.
And I've been back since 1970. I have been here and haven't even thought about migrating again or remigrating or living abroad. I don't think even, and especially at my age now, what am I going to migrate to do? I have theatre, I have radio, I have television, I have Rotary, I'm in Scouts.
You're on social media here now.
Social media here. So I have friends like you and you know, so I go there to do what? Sit down in an apartment while my daughter goes to work.
For your contributions, Ron, have you received anything from any government administration in Guyana National Award?
Yes, in 1990, both Maggie and myself, same year, received the Golden Arrow of Achievement from President Hoyt. So I did get a national award then.
There's two after that. The highest is Order of Excellence, but there's a Cacique come
Cacique
upon an
Honorable.
Order of Uraima. I would hope, most definitely Gildarie, that comes your way. I would hope so. The people who have got Order of Uraima and the people who have got Cacique Crown of Honor tend to be in the area of administration, education, business. Why not theatre? Why not the
I
arts?
think, one of the problems, I remember a couple of years back working with Kitesurf News, and we were at the Culture Center, and they were giving out awards. And I remember a couple of business people. And I couldn't help shake the feeling, Freddie and Juan, that this whole thing was, let's give it to friends, national awards, right? I don't know, I don't want to talk about it because some of my friends got awards, and I couldn't believe that they even accepted it because I couldn't understand, is being a businessman the qualification for you to receive a national award? And I saw some people, I know they did philanthropy work and they got it, and so I always wondered whether national awards, was a thing. They just give it away.
Would you accept an offer from the government to serve in culture and arts?
Depends on what area they want me to serve in. I would not like to restrict my satire by being on any one side or the other. I prefer to be neutral so that I can openly do satire without any restrictions or constraints. So probably not. What would they offer a man of my age?
Your age is a state of mind.
Yeah,
please.
that's true.
And with your experience, I'm sure those young people will gravitate to you. You could train people in acting. You could train people in voice modulation. You could train people how to direct. I have a friend at Theatre Guild, Malcolm de Freitas.
Oh, Malcolm.
Have you trained him?
Well, Malcolm has worked with me, and he is one of the buttresses of the Theatre Guild. He is there virtually every day, and he sort of keeps the Theatre Guild going. I must give him credit for that.
The Theatre Guild is in your DNA, of course.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I joined the Theatre Guild in the 60s, and I don't regret being there. I was about 20, 21 when 19 when I joined the Guild, and that is where I got a lot of the experience in theatre.
This
As
is
I
the Theatre
mentioned-
Guild man. This is the Theatre Guild man. It's huge, and it's a red cover with a mask called A History of Theatre in Guyana, written
yes.
by a white guy.
Frank Thomason.
Yeah. He married a Guyanese woman.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read it, but it's too expensive. But I wanted to know how he treated your role in theatre. Have you read it?
Yes, I have a copy actually.
And you're satisfied with your?
Yes, I
your
think he
treatment?
was very, very fair, and he did a lot of research. It's like a Bible of theatre in Guyana, I must say. Some of the things that he went so far back in theatre. And in fact, his ashes are buried in the Theatre Guild compound.
Look at that. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
He asked that his ashes be buried there.
Yeah.
And his wife, Carlotta Thomason.
Hawk ashes are buried there.
No, she is still alive.
She's still alive.
But she brought the ashes back, and his ashes are buried under a tree in the backyard of Theatre Guild.
If the traditional classical plays that I know you for, Only Game in Town, the film with Elizabeth Taylor, Long Day's Journey Tonight by Eugene O'Neill. If he was, and the Tennessee Williams plays, if you were to, like White Sargasso Sea, if you were to put on, move out of your traditional satire, because the Ling Show Stretch Out magazine of 40, 45 years, if you used to put on the classical play in the Theatre Guild, which one would it be?
A Man for All Seasons.
Okay, that was
think-
by Paul Schofield was
Right,
acting
he did the lead role
in,
in that.
in the film.
And Ken Crosby did it here at the Theatre Guild. He was Thomas More in the play here, Man for All Seasons, and he did a massively excellent job. He was so good. I still remember that play to this day. Ken was A1, excellent. One of the finest performances, in my opinion, ever at the Theatre Guild was A Man for All Seasons featuring Ken Crosby.
All right. What, apart from Old Time Story, Driving Miss Daisy, and Witness for the Prosecution, I'd like to hear, because there's so many you acted in, so
Yes.
many you produced.
That's true.
Which of the Tennessee Williams play you like best?
Well, Father Gardner directed me in, getting old.
Streetcar Named Desire?
Streetcar Named Desire. Myself, the late Elizabeth Wells, Eileen McAndrew, and George Mackenzie, who was at the Trinidad High Commission at the time. And Father Gardner was the director, and I remember that play very, very well. Streetcar Named Desire. And what I also remember, very funny, Eugene Williams was the stage manager. He became the first non-Jamaican principal of the Jamaican School of Drama. He's that good. And Eugene was stage manager. And it was a tradition at the Guild, after every production there was a parody. And he did a parody, and instead of A Streetcar Named Desire, he called it A Bus Called Lust. And they did, it was so funny. And they would, do, satirical or lampoon the actors. And we, the actors, have to sit in the auditorium and look at them, do us. And he did the role of Father Gardner, directing us. And it was so funny, so funny.
I am going to insist, I don't know if I should say this, put my foot in my mouth, but
Please
I am,
insist, I insist.
I am going to insist, I am going to use my pen, my voice, that something substantial has to be named after you. It has to be. It is just plain wrong, Gildarie. It is just plain wrong.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
It's not a compliment. It has nothing to do with you. It's my country's recognition of people who have made sterling, stupendous, phenomenal, input into the survival of this nation, culturally, sociologically, etc. It has nothing to do with you.
But you have made a major contribution in journalism in this country as well.
Please, I'm talking about you. I can't match your experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ron Robinson in the house. If you had the opportunity, which you do know, Mr. Robinson, to say something to the people of Guyana with regards to our arts, with regards to where this country is going, what would it be?
I would ask you to please, the COVID-19 pandemic is virtually over, please support the artists and the producers. Remember, producers take risks. They have to pay actors, they have to pay for publicity, costumes, rental of the cultural center, or wherever they're going to perform. So they take that risk, and you as a businessman would know, all entrepreneurs take the risk. So let us help the entrepreneurs, let us help the producers, let's help the actors, like John B., like Mark, and everybody, help the arts, because it's going to make us so much stronger and better as a country. So please, let's support the arts. I'm begging you, come out whenever there are plays, and as you said, I'll probably be able to get back to some of the classical plays, and hopefully I can garner support from the audiences that enjoy that kind of theatre.
I'm sorry, Gildarie. Have you ever seen him outside of Satire, have you ever seen him in a classical West Indian drama or a classical English American play? Have
No,
you ever seen him?
unfortunately, no.
I
But
hope-
I've seen him in Shattered Magazine and excerpts of the Link Show and so on.
They're
I'm
kind of,
gonna be, and if I think YouTube would probably have some of those things as well. But if they're DVDs, I think also could they pick them up somewhere?
I would think so.
Right.
There's a play I forgot which was one of my most challenging plays. In fact, the most challenging play, written by Atul Fugard, South African, white, but about, it's called Sisbi Bansi is Dead.
yeah, I know what that.
And in that play, Henry Rodney, God rest the dead, he and I were the main characters. I was the lead role and he was like the supporting role. And for the first 40 minutes or so, I alone on stage, doing about 17 pages of script that I had to commit to memory, and about 4 or 5 different characters. And that was so challenging, you know. It was done at a festival. And to get back to your point and yours about support of the arts, when we did it at the drama festival, people started to leave because it wasn't the kind of play they expected in the festival. Very serious play. And but that was one of my most challenging and one of my most memorable plays or performances.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ron Robinson, and of course, this is not your run-of-the-mill show that Freddie and I would normally hold here, but it is necessary to raise, as we always say, the level of conversation in this country. You want to step up in this country, or any parts of the world, you got to do things differently. We got to have a deep appreciation of these our artists, different areas, so many areas we could talk about. It's not only about education and infrastructure, it's not only about building things. Got to pay attention to our culture. It's a huge possibility of tourism there. So many things, and we got to develop them, give them the capacity, the capabilities there. So, of course, we can't put our shoes in 60 plus years in acting and in broadcasting, 50 something years in broadcasting to a man of the magnitude of Ron Robinson. So many are out there that has not been able to give a moment in the spotlight, but they have been doing their thing very quietly, building this country, ladies and gentlemen. So wherever you are, please, we're using a platform here to appeal to you to see it in your hearts, and especially corporate Guyana. Let us do a little more, even if it's something more to give to them. We can find monies to do everything else. Here's a challenge to you: put your money where your mouth is. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Have a pleasant rest of the night or day wherever you are. And I want to say thank you very much to my co-host Freddie Kissoon as usual, and of course to our special guest here, Mr. Ron Robinson. A good man, phenomenal character, and a good Guyanese. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.